Aaron. I'm from Unlimit. So Unlimit is a payment company. We are headquartered in UK. We've been around for 15 years, and primarily we help our merchants, globally to be able to send and collect money from all over the world. Yeah. So I myself, I'm based here in Singapore, and I work, very closely with financial institutions, fintech companies, and even regulators to help build the product infrastructure here in Asia Pacific. I think definitely. I think payments should be one of the core factors, right? For any business when they're planning for their business expansion. I give you two points. So the first point would be cash management and cash flow management, right? So if you're in the business of say import export, many times these kind of businesses, they are always on credit. They have a line of credit with their suppliers, right? 30 days, 60 days, or even 90-day credit. And what happens is that, as a business, you want to maximize your cash flow, right? And what this means is that, when it comes to paying your suppliers, you want to do it at you want to prolong as much as possible and pay it at the last mile during the credit period. So, and what many people do is, they pay on the last day. And based on my experience, what happens is that, they work with several bank partners or the payment providers. And more often than not, we see that the payments get stuck, right? And because of this, the whole payment operations get delayed. And this causes a whole effect in terms of the downstream operations. So I think in this sense, businesses really need to find a good partner to work with whenever they are planning for their business expansion. Now, the second point I want to talk about would be cost of transaction.
Yeah.
Right. So in Singapore, relatively, the cost of transaction is quite cheap, right? If I send a PayNow transaction to you, it's just a couple of cents. Right?
Yeah.
But imagine today if you're an e-commerce merchant and you want to expand your business overseas, say in Indonesia, in Vietnam, or even in China, right? If let's say I'm selling a $100 shoe, right, and I open my business in Vietnam and I'm suddenly selling in VND, right? So now there's a conversion involved.
Yep.
And the conversion might be the FX alone might be 4 or 5%. So suddenly this shoe that I'm selling here in Singapore for $100 might not be worth $100 in another market.
Yep.
So I guess these are just some of the things that businesses have to take into consideration when planning their business expansion. That's a very interesting question. So, payments is actually a very simple business altogether. In the context of local to local transactions, if let's say within Singapore, if I'm just sending you, from my bank, I'm using UOB and maybe you are using DBS, I do a PayNow transfer to you. Essentially, it's very simple. But when you add cross-border and when you add foreign exchange into the picture, it becomes a totally different beast altogether, right? So, right, and because of this, now there's cross-border currency involved. The $1 that I'm sending to you is no longer worth $1,
Yep.
right? And I also have to take into consideration the other regulatory practices that the other markets are working on. So, for example, if I'm sending money to you, maybe in India, then I have to take into consideration India's regulatory policy, right? There might be some differences in terms of the regulatory policies, such as AML or even personal data protection.
Yep.
Right. So I think these are basically the challenges that payment providers like us we face.
Mhm.
But I think what we are fortunate here in Singapore, I can't say for the rest of the world, but generally in Singapore, we are fortunate enough to have, I would say, a pretty healthy compliance or regulatory ecosystem. Okay, because we have MAS working with us, hand in hand, and we're always having conversations in terms of the kind of policies that MAS are planning to launch. So I give you a very good example. I think just 2 weeks ago, MAS actually launched a new, or they implemented a new policy, which is the shared responsibility framework. And what this is that telcos and financial institutions, right, are now responsible for scam cases in Singapore. So depending on the negligence of the institution, now the financial institutions and the telcos are responsible for taking care of scam cases. If not, if they found any negligence, then the institutions will be liable for the cost of the scam. So in this case, because they recently just implemented this, right? In many markets, whenever there's a scam case that happens, right? The regulators will just come in and take over the whole situation. But for us, I think in Singapore, this whole process, even though it was announced 2 weeks ago, but we were having this conversation as payment providers, right? We were having this conversation with MAS way back, like months before. So having a good conversation with the regulators, right, allows us to predict and plan our roadmap strategy, so that when things are implemented, when new policies are implemented, it doesn't impact our operations. So I think this is some of the ways that I guess from a regulatory point of view and from a payment provider point of view, we can work together and create this kind of ecosystem for future product enhancements and innovation. Wow, I think based on my own personal beliefs, I see that stable coins would probably be something that is up and coming. In fact, it's already up and coming. But I'm personally a bit more optimistic in terms of stable coins. Now, just to be clear for everyone, I'm not talking about stable coins as a speculative trading kind of thing, but more of from an institution to institution settlement and clearing point of view. So right now, whenever we send large amounts, or even if we send US dollars, we have to go through US dollar clearing, and it typically takes 1 or 2 days, right? And that's also one of the reasons why B2B transactions are still not as efficient as B2C or C2C transactions. So I think with stablecoins, in this case, it's going to solve a lot of these issues. But obviously, there will always be issues also in terms of regulatory and compliance. So I think this is a space that we should be looking forward to.